Hi, everybody. Welcome in. We've got a terrific lineup for you this time. Great to have you with us on this Wednesday. Have you ever had to miss work to take care of a family member or perhaps because of the birth of a newborn? Most people have. Often it means the temporary loss of a paycheck because the U.S., unlike most developed countries, doesn't require family leave. A proposal now being considered by district leaders is being praised by many, though not everyone is on board. D.C. Bureau Chief Sam Ford has our report.
Babies crawled on the floor, mothers had babes in arms, in the corridor, and in the council chambers as well. And we found most had some form of family leave.
It's essential that new parents be able to have the time to bond with their children and support their family.
Me and my husband both have paid leave, and so it's really important for us, and I would really like to see more families benefit from that.
Under the council's bill, D.C.'s benefit would surpass any other, up to 16 weeks of paid family leave.
This is a challenge, but I think it's something we all need to embrace and start to move this city and hopefully the country towards a new place when it comes to doing this. It's not new. Other countries have been doing it for years.
Grosso, along with Councilmember Alyssa Silverman, introduced it. Under the bill, there's a list of reasons an employee could take family leave, including a new baby, a new adoption, or to care for a sick family member.
I have an 80-year-old dad and a 75-year-old mom, and they're in good health, but you never know when something's going to happen.
However, D.C.'s Chamber of Commerce sees this bill as a job killer.
People should be able to take care of themselves and their families, but this would harm the business community by going too far. It does more, and it's also paid for completely by employers, and that's a bad idea.
Not covered are D.C. residents who work for the federal government, for federal contractors, or who work outside of the city, but they can buy into the program by essentially paying premiums. As for non-D.C. residents, say from Maryland and Virginia, who work in the city with employers who are part of the program, they automatically would be covered. Reporting from the John Wilson Building, Sam Ford, News Channel 8.
Sam, thank you very much. And joining us now, D.C. Councilman David Grosso, an independent. He serves at large. Welcome. It's good to have you here.
Thanks, Bruce.
What motivated you to pull the trigger on this idea? As we've mentioned a couple times, we as a nation lag behind. But is it up to individual cities like the district to close what many see as a gap?
Well, thanks for asking me. Thanks for having me on, Bruce. I appreciate being here. You know, this is an important issue that we have to tackle, I think, one city at a time. Congress is not up for the job. They haven't been able to get a lot done. And ultimately, we're way behind other countries. And so it's time for us to begin to have this discussion. I started this debate 2 years ago when I introduced a bill that allowed D.C. government employees to have paid leave, and ultimately that was passed, and we now have it in place. 8 weeks paid leave for D.C. government employees. And now it's time to move to the private sector. How do we make sure people can be with the ones they love? A new baby, elderly parent they're caring for. How do we make sure they have the opportunity to care for their family and have really strong families built in the District of Columbia?
How many different financing options did you look at, and why did you settle on the one that's in the bill?
This financing option is a little bit backed into. The reality is that in the District of Columbia, you know, we're not allowed to charge out-of-state residents any type of tax. It's called a commuter tax. We've been prohibited by Congress from doing this. So what we did was we began to look at other ways to do it. And this way, where we charge every business a percentage, and it's a sliding scale percentage, is the way that we can actually make it possible for it to be less expensive. So it's broadly, kind of equitably spent around the city. And I think that's the best way to do it.
This would create a fund,
It would create a fund that's administered by the D.C. government. People would apply to the fund to get paid for the time that they have off to care for a loved one. You know, this could change. This is a bill that's an introduction, and I think people need to know that. I've met with the business community at length about this. We're going to continue meeting. We'll have hearings, and maybe there's another mechanism that we can come up with that'll work even better. But right now, we think this is the best way to do it and most equitable approach.
Did they seem opposed to the concept in general, or was it the particular arrangement, the scheme that you settled on for the bill? I mean, I guess the reason I ask is, do you foresee a potential middle ground as conversations continue?
I'm hoping that there'll be a middle ground as we move forward. I met with the Chamber of Commerce about 4 weeks ago, and there was over 50 members there at this meeting, and all of them have reached out to me and been engaged and been involved. They're modeling it at their businesses. They're trying to find a way. I think the business community in the District of Columbia wants to support this, wants to do the right thing. After all, why wouldn't they? In the long run, they're going to be able to offer this HR benefit to their employees, maybe many of them couldn't have done before. But because we're spreading the cost out broadly like this, more people can engage, and employees will come back to work, I think, more productive, because they'll be able to have cared for their loved one, build relationships in their families, both men and women across the entire city. So that's important.
Phone lines open as we talk this Wednesday with David Grosso. He's an independent, at-large member of the District of Columbia Council. We're talking about the family leave proposal that lawmakers, that the D.C. Council is about to sort of dig into and really deliberate on in an in-depth way. But we'll touch on some other topics as well. And as always, the phone lines are open because we enjoy greatly including you in the conversation. So we've posted the number to the bottom of the screen, and we'll go to the phones as your calls come in. Dial us and join the conversation at 703-387-1020. Even if you live in D.C. or Virginia, this issue of family leave, I think, cuts broadly across the population because we all have kids, we all have aging parents. This is one where everyone has, I think, skin in the game. So join us with your thoughts, your questions, your suggestions. Numbers on the screen, and as I say, we'll go to the phones as your questions and comments come in. Can you talk a little bit more about how, arguably, Americans suffer in this area of the work-life balance, particularly when something great happens, like an adoption or the birth of a child, or a challenge comes along, like caring for a spouse with a sudden illness or disability, an aging parent. Can you talk about where we are now as Americans vis-a-vis, I think, almost all other developed nations?
Well, that's a great point, Bruce, and I appreciate you raising it. Here's the deal. When somebody takes off time, when they go to have a baby or to deal with an accident that happened in the family with their loved one, maybe their spouse or their parent, they cobble together the time, right? They do whatever they have for paid time off, whether it's sick leave or administrative or annual leave for a holiday. And even sometimes in offices, they have these pools of leave that help people do this. And so basically the entire burden is on these individuals to manage this situation, and often it's very difficult and very limited. So this is going to be able to find a way. And stressful, extremely stressful. And so instead of saying we value that time, we value you having that time in your life to care for your loved one and be with your loved ones, we've said, oh, just manage. We might keep your job. We have actually a job protection law in D.C. that makes you keep the job. But, I think as it flip this on its head, what's going to happen is a happy worker is a more performance-based worker. That worker can actually do more. They're going to achieve more in their job. They're going to want to do more. They're going to be more loyal. And so if you get them out there working with their family, they become more satisfied. They get to do it without a lot of stress. They come back and they're way more productive. And I think that's key.
When you look at other issues where folks like yourself, where legislators at the city level and at the state level have heard about proposals that perhaps have become law, and then you get a couple years down the road, whether it's smoking or same-sex marriage or probably 100 different things you could point to, right? Do you see the potential for something here where Washington goes first, another city follows, a state says, you know what, we think we like what we're seeing over there in the District of Columbia. We're going to, rather than reinvent the wheel, we're going to do this too. Is there that potential here?
My hope is there is. There is a law that's been introduced also in Congress on this, which I think is something people are tracking. If a lot of jurisdictions start doing this, I know California has done something. I know that Rhode Island, for example, has jumped into this. So if we start seeing this go across the country, I think you'll see a shift, and hopefully a large shift in national policy towards really respecting the values of family. This is really what family values are all about, and getting people engaged with their loved ones like this. So my hope is that if they do copy what we're doing, they do it broadly like we've done. Everybody can engage.
Can you address directly the criticism leveled by the head of the chamber in Sam Ford's setup piece?
Well, in fact, I really want to say how much I appreciate Harry Wingo and the work that he's done already with me on this. We've had great conversations. His basic premise is that it's going to make them less competitive, and mine is the opposite. I actually think it's going to make our businesses more competitive for 2 and maybe even 3 specific reasons. The first is that they're going to be able to attract employees to the District of Columbia. Their pool of employees is going to grow, and they're going to be able to attract people to come here to work. That's a positive for every business. They're going to be able to retain employees, right? They're going to be able to keep employees who are off on leave, who are going to come back. They're going to say, this is important to me. I'm going to go and support my business and my place of work. And the third thing is, when they come back, they're going to feel like they were satisfied. They got to do what they went out to do, care for their loved ones, and come back and be a real productive member of the team.
Is there some amount of analysis or guesswork involved in trying to determine how many people would take advantage of this opportunity were it to be available?
Well, you know, in the government, we don't guess ever. I'm just kidding. But in the long run, we are actually studying this in-depthly. The Department of Labor gave us a grant in D.C. to study the D.C. government section of it to start to see if people are taking the time off. Are they taking 2 weeks, 3 weeks? What are they doing? That will give us a better indication of how much money we have to raise, which is one of the levers. And then we go back and we can actually get a better idea of what the businesses are going to have to pay.
Talking family leave with D.C. Councilman David Grosso, an independent at-large member of the 13-person panel. We will take a quick break here. We're back, though. We pledge with more News Talk. Keep it here.